"Sweetheart, this is a corporate office, not Shark Tank. We don't negotiate with junior staff." That's what Denise from HR said to my face. Right after I handed her a 14-page document outlining every vendor I'd onboarded, every system I'd cleaned, and every flaming bag of compliance dogshit I'd hosed down while the rest of the team was too busy circling back on lunch orders. I didn't blink. I didn't scream. I didn't even flinch when she did that condescending little head tilt. You know the one, where it looks like they're trying to hear your soul crumple. I just nodded, slow and calm, like I was tucking a bullet into the chamber. But let me back up. 1 week before this little HR exorcism, I was eating lukewarm instant noodles in the break room, surrounded by the smell of burnt popcorn and betrayal, while manually reconciling a vendor import that should have been handled by automated tools 3 years ago. But our tools? Broken, outdated. Half the integrations were so mangled it looked like someone had shoved spaghetti code into a meat grinder, then let Steve from IT duct tape it together during a seizure. I stayed late every night that week, patched what I could, rerouted 3 API pathways by hand, and personally chased down a ghost billing issue that had been bleeding $22,000 a month since March. All while my manager, Brad, who once forwarded me an email he himself was CC'd on, was too busy demoing the company Slack emoji wall to the new interns. So yeah, when I walked into HR, it wasn't with ego. It was exhaustion. Proof. Results. I wasn't demanding a crown. I just wanted the damn dignity of a pay bump that matched the blood I was wringing from my keyboard. And I got sweetheart. Anyway, right about here, if you're nodding your head and thinking, yep, I've been there, then hey, would mean the world if you hit that subscribe button. I'm clawing my way to my first ever 10,000 subscribers, and every click helps me fire another metaphorical HR Denise into the sun. All right, back to the tale of corporate sabotage and righteous resurrection. So I left HR's crypt with my face straight but my knuckles white. Denise smiled the whole way through like she'd just performed some kind of mercy killing. "We really do value you," she chirped. "We just have to be fair to the rest of the team. Right? The team that panicked when I took 1 sick day and 3 vendor portals locked themselves out like nervous breakdowns in a trench coat." I didn't rage. I didn't even vent. I just went home, made a cup of stale peppermint tea, opened my personal laptop, and logged into LinkedIn for the first time in 6 months. I didn't even update my headline. I just scrolled through every vendor, partner, and logistics firm we'd ever so much as CC'd in a group email. My search history turned into a hit list. 2 days later, I got a message. "Hey, your name came up during an internal audit. You're the one who fixed our contract portal last quarter, right?" It was from a senior analyst at one of our biggest clients. A medical logistics company I'd had to babysit through 3 onboarding disasters and 2 outages caused by our lazy integration team. He wanted to meet, informally, just to pick my brain. I took PTO, smiled like it was a real vacation. Didn't even tell Brad. Why would I? Brad still thought I was a contractor. I sat in their glass-walled office sipping real coffee for the first time in a month while they asked me about their own systems, which turns out were still being trampled by my old company's lazy codebase. They didn't want a consultant. They wanted a cleaner, and I was already holding the mop. When I left that day, they handed me a stack of paperwork. "No pressure," they said, "just think about it. Full-time offer, better title, better money, more autonomy." And one little kicker, they wanted help prepping for their upcoming vendor audit of my company. I walked home in a fog, wind slicing through my sleeves, and I smiled. Not like someone who'd won the lottery, but like someone who just saw the floorboard creak under the guy who thinks he's safe. I didn't have to scream. I didn't have to fight. I just had to wait and sharpen the knife. The job boards became my nightlight. After that HR meeting, I stopped binge-watching true crime and started living it, scrolling through listings like they were criminal dossiers. Systems analyst, integration specialist, vendor compliance manager. Every posting got cross-referenced with our partner directory like I was running a sting op. I didn't apply wide, I applied smart, only to companies that had touched our mess. Anyone who ever got burned by one of our botched deployments, billing errors, or API meltdowns, congrats. You just made my short list. By midnight, my desktop looked like a digital war room. Chrome tabs flaring, resume versions numbered like SQL titles, coffee ring bleeding across a printed spreadsheet of past support tickets I'd personally resolved but never got credit for. If this was war, I wasn't going to the front, I was the weapon. 2 days into this covert job hunt, I got an email that stopped me cold. Subject, Quick Sync Vendor Audit Prep. The sender was someone I'd never spoken to directly, James, a senior systems director at Gen Axis Logistics, one of our firm's largest and oldest clients. If we were the greasy mechanic shop, they were the guy still letting us inspect his brakes every quarter because switching garages was too disruptive. Apparently my name had come up. He said he'd seen it buried in an old support ticket trail where I caught a recurring credential error that had been misfiled as external fault. Their side had flagged it, logged it, then quietly moved on when we resolved it. His email said, "We figured you were the one doing all the real work. You available for a quick chat?" I stared at the screen for a long time. Not just because someone noticed me, but because someone noticed correctly. We picked a Friday. I burned one of my PTO days and told Brad I was finally going to get that dental work done. He barely looked up from his phone. Probably thought I was taking a long weekend to emotionally recover from Sweetheart Gate. I smiled. Let him. I walked into Gen Axis headquarters wearing the same blazer I wore to my last real date. They sat me down in a glass conference room with citrus water and a project whiteboard still stained with faded panic notes from their last vendor sync. James leaned in. Real professional. Polite. Didn't waste time. We don't want to throw your employer under the bus, he said, but we've been watching your name pop up every time something actually gets done. And honestly, our systems are being held together with zip ties and PDF exports. We think you can help. They didn't need another postmortem report. They needed surgery. The vendor portal had failed 3 logins in the past week, triggering internal ticket loops. Their billing files came in encrypted under a protocol we deprecated 2 years ago. They had a half-implemented single sign-on flow that still routed admin resets to a no-reply inbox. All of it traced back to us, or rather to the parts of us not named me. I didn't sell myself hard. I didn't have to. They'd already built my resume from the breadcrumbs I left behind. I don't want to cause any conflict, I said carefully, sipping their espresso like it didn't just outclass every coffee I ever made at the office Keurig. James nodded like he respected the play. Of course, just exploring. We wrapped in under an hour. He walked me out with a handshake and the kind of quiet nod that says we'll talk again soon. I walked back to my apartment with a bag of takeout I didn't remember ordering and stared at my inbox until 1 a.m. The message came in before sunrise. Formal offer attached. No pressure. We'd love to have you in time for the Q4 audit. Your old firm's up for review. Could use a translator who knows where the bodies are buried. My mouse hovered over the download button for a long time. It wasn't just an escape hatch. It was a ladder. Out of junior hell and into the one place my ex-employer would have to look me in the face and smile. I was living a double life. By day, I was the junior analyst no one CC'd unless something was already on fire. By night and weekend, I was a digital surgeon cutting tumors out of Gen Axis's backend systems with surgical precision and a side of petty vengeance. I started small. Pulled the old error logs I'd stashed in my personal drive for training purposes. Wink wink, parsed through ticket IDs I remembered handling but was never credited for. Rebuilt credential chains. Drew diagrams on sticky notes until my desk looked like a corkboard from a conspiracy docuseries. I found subroutines buried like landmines, functions left undocumented, deprecated libraries duct-taped into production because Steve once read a blog post that said backward compatibility was for cowards. It was a junkyard, and somehow was mine. I spent Saturdays reverse engineering integration points from memory. On Sundays, I turned them into slides, recommendations, risk indicators, high-priority refactors. Gen Axis ate it up like candy wrapped in compliance. Their CTO started looping me into Slack discussions. I got invited to private Zoom calls, off-record, off-hours, but with serious eyes on the other end. One by one, they started treating me like a specialist. Not junior, not temporary, not sweetheart. At the office, same old script. Brad kept sending me requests to polish up this dashboard or reformat these reports for leadership. He never asked how those dashboards even pulled data, just that the pie charts looked less threatening. HR didn't check in. Denise smiled at me once in the hallway like I was a houseplant she'd forgotten to water. Everyone assumed I was content, quiet, harmless. But my resignation letter was saved on my desktop under a folder named Housekeeping. All it needed was a date. Meanwhile, Gen Axis started opening doors. Gave me limited sandbox access. Trusted me to investigate their compliance gaps. I flagged issues, backed it up with receipts, and offered solutions wrapped in legalese and vendor-safe phrasing. They started calling me their bridge, the one person who could untangle the mess without setting off landmines. I became their living Rosetta Stone for understanding why their billing was late, their reports were off, and their portal sometimes acted like it was haunted by a drunk raccoon. The adrenaline was addictive. I'd get home from a full workday, drop my bag, and look forward to booting up a terminal window. Because over there, I was trusted, respected, paid for my mind, not punished for having one. The breaking point came during a Gen Axis leadership huddle where they quietly floated the idea of replacing our firm as vendor of record. Legal had concerns. Logistics had headaches. But then the VP of Ops looked straight at me through the Zoom cam and said, "What if she didn't just consult? What if she ran it?" Silence. "Then you mean lead the audit?" He nodded. "Not just the audit, the systems, procurement integration. Long-term compliance. She already knows more than the firm we pay 6 figures to every quarter." That night, I got an official offer. Full-time, title, lead systems auditor. Salary, nearly double what I made playing dashboard maid for Brad. They wanted me on board before the next vendor audit. They needed someone who could not only expose what went wrong, but prove it, clean it, and restructure it so it never went that wrong again. I didn't accept right away. Not because I doubted it. Because revenge, like wine and subpoenas, is better aged. My resignation would come. But not yet. First, I had to make sure I walked out on the exact right Monday. The one where I'd be walking right back in with a different badge. I handed in my resignation on a Wednesday morning, sandwiched between back-to-back meetings no one invited me to speak in. The HR portal made it feel like I was unsubscribing from a very dull newsletter. Click, confirm, goodbye. Denise didn't even summon me for an exit interview. Just sent me an auto-generated email with a PDF titled Transition Guidance for Departing Junior Employees. No one noticed the irony that the PDF file itself was corrupt. I laughed, alone, then renamed it Poetry. Brad, of course, found a way to make it about him. He sauntered over to my desk with his usual blend of Axe body spray and mild condescension, leaned on the divider like we were old war buddies and said, "So you're jumping ship, huh? Let me guess, Gen Axis? They go through analysts like my ex goes through crystals." I gave him a polite smile, the kind you reserve for Uber drivers who overshare about their rash. "Good luck," he added with a chuckle. "You'll be back. Everyone comes back. Everyone. Except me." Because while he was butchering metaphors and using my mouse to scroll through a pivot table he didn't understand, I was already inside Gen Axis's systems, mapping them, triaging them, rewriting them. My pre-audit roadmap was halfway done. James had looped me into their internal security threads under the alias consultant phase 0. I was neck-deep in diagnostic reports from a decade of vendor neglect, my vendor neglect. I could name every shortcut our firm took, every cover-up, every certificate that expired without renewal, every place where we didn't encrypt because the client won't notice. They noticed, and now I was their microscope. Over the next 2 weeks, I played the perfect departing ghost. I answered emails. I handed over half-baked documentation with just enough detail to look helpful, but not enough to be usable. I attended my final team sync with my camera off and my microphone conveniently glitching. Nobody asked where I was going. They all assumed it was sideways or down. They always do. I cleaned out my desk on a Friday afternoon while everyone else was busy rage-slacking about the new cafeteria coffee policy. My cardboard box was half empty. A cracked mug, a single sticky note with a quote from Good Will Hunting, and a mechanical keyboard I bought with my own money because the office one sounded like typing on toast. Before I left, I pulled out my personal planner, paper, old school, reliable. I flipped 2 weeks forward and wrote in block letters, Audit Day, Monday. Then I underlined it twice. Walking out of that building felt like molting, like shedding a skin that had grown stale, itchy, and beneath notice. I didn't turn around because why would I? The next time I stepped through those doors, it wouldn't be through the side entrance with a chipped badge and a $5 access key. It would be through the front lobby, with a laptop full of evidence, and a contract that made them answer to me. The doors hissed open like they recognized me, and maybe they did. Same office building, same beige lobby that smelled like printer toner and ambition rot. But this time, I wasn't carrying my lunch in a canvas tote and praying someone didn't accidentally eat it again. I was in a tailored navy blazer, guest badge clipped clean to my lapel, and a laptop bag that weighed more than some of the egos upstairs. Security waved me through without a second glance. New company, new clearance, new smile. At the elevator, I caught a reflection of myself in the mirrored panel. Same eyes, same spine. But the woman looking back at me wasn't tired. She wasn't overlooked. She wasn't junior staff. She was the reckoning they didn't know they invited. The elevator dinged. The moment the doors parted, I saw it ripple, shock, recognition, confusion like someone had summoned a ghost in a pantsuit. Kyle from Data blinked so hard his glasses slipped off. 2 engineers whispered as I walked by, one of them mouthing, "Is that her?" Like I'd risen from the dead instead of their own blind spots. And then, HR, Denise. She stood outside the fishbowl conference room, holding her reusable water bottle like a crucifix. I watched her eyes scan my badge, watched her realize this wasn't a friendly catch-up visit, this was business. "Welcome back," she said like the words physically hurt. "Thanks," I replied. "I'm here for the audit." She tried to smile but came out looking like she bit down on a lemon. "You're, assisting the team from Gen Axis." I opened my laptop just enough for her to glimpse the header on the first slide. Lead Systems Auditor External Compliance Liaison. Her throat clicked when she swallowed. Inside the conference room, the VP of Ops, Greg, who once told me I had great potential once I matured professionally, stood up and knocked over his coffee. It splashed across a pile of printed spreadsheets that I personally knew were 3 versions out of date. He wiped his hand on his tie and tried to pretend this was normal. "Didn't know you'd be joining us," he said, overcompensating so hard I thought a vein might burst in his neck. I slid into the seat at the head of the table, not the side, not the corner, the head. "Joining," I said, booting up my machine. "Oh no, I'm leading this one. Full systems and compliance audit. Retroactive 12 months. Silence. The kind that settles like fog in a cemetery." Greg blinked. 12 months? "Yes," I said, scrolling. "Per clause 9.3 of your contract with Gen Axis. They have the right to audit all vendor-facing systems, integration logs, credential management history, and compliance certifications going back 1 full year. I've already reviewed your vendor onboarding flow, and I'll need access to all legacy integration tickets by EOD." Denise dropped her pen. Someone cursed under their breath, and I smiled. Not a wide grin, not theatrical, just enough to say I warned you, but only in a language the overlooked know how to speak. Because here's the thing about ghosts, they don't knock. They walk right through the walls you swore would hold.